Heavy fighting continues in Sudan despite a renewed truce between the army and a powerful paramilitary group. Air and artillery strikes have rocked parts of the capital, Khartoum. Hundreds have been killed and tens of thousands have fled. Those who can't leave are facing shortages, including of medical care.
A moment of relief and joy. Medical volunteers rushed to help deliver this baby in the back of a car, and they picked a name that embodies a message of hope.
When you hear the cries of a newborn baby at the time of war and when hospitals are closed, we had to choose a very nice name for the baby. We liked two names, Salam, which means peace, and Muntasir, which means victorious. We chose Muntasir.
As the conflict in Sudan wages on, dozens of hospitals have closed due to damage, looting and a lack of critical supplies such as oxygen, blood and medical equipment. Fuel for ambulances is also scarce. This hospital in the city of Omdurman is still open, but is struggling to cope.
The medical teams and the hospital's facilities are really lacking. Under normal circumstances, we have teams. Now every shift is longer. There are not enough doctors. There are only 2 doctors or 1 doctor who covers 1 or 2 departments, and sometimes 3 departments.
The Red Cross estimates that 50,000 children who need urgent treatment for malnutrition could now be affected by disruption in food and healthcare supplies. And as the fighting continues relentlessly, the problem looks set to get worse.
And I'd like to welcome journalist Patrick Oyat, who's following this from Juba, South Sudan. After 2 weeks of fighting now, there are fewer facilities and personnel available to care for the wounded. What efforts are being made to get hospitals up and running again?
Well, the Sudanese Doctors Union says it is trying its best, but it is very difficult because you need supplies, you need drugs from the pharmacies where you can buy and restock. And now some of these pharmacies are running out of drugs. And those that are there, that are few, do not, the prices have gone exceedingly high. So it's a very, very big challenge. That is for the private hospitals. Then you have the government hospital. The government hospitals, according to the Ministry of Health, the only medical store that they used to rely on has been bombed, so they don't have supplies. At this time when routes are not safe, no supplies are coming into the country, so it is very difficult. The Health Ministry and the World Health Organization have both said only 16% of health infrastructure remains standing and working. So that's really a very big challenge for provision of health services in Khartoum at the moment.
You are painting a very dire picture of the situation there with shortages and sky-high prices. I also want to turn to another troubling update. We're getting reports that this fighting has reawakened intercommunal violence in Darfur, where hundreds of thousands of people were killed in conflict over the past 2 decades. What can you tell us about the situation there?
Two problems there. Number one is there has been a vacuum that was created by the fighting in Khartoum and other parts of the country, that security is not now properly provided by the state, of course. And that area of Darfur is one of the areas that so many civilians are really armed. These are because of various reasons. You know, that place borders Chad, it also extends to that side of Libya, it also extends to Central African Republic. Now, when you look at all these countries that border that area, they have had a lot of armed conflict actually ongoing. And getting arms in the hands of the local people is very easy. So we have groups already that are armed. These are civilians, but they are kind of militia that are armed. They protect their own interests. Now, in this situation, they took advantage and started clashing among themselves, looting and so forth. And also the second element is that we've also heard of clashes between actually the Rapid Support Forces and Sudan Armed Forces. So those are the elements that have really created a lot of problems in Darfur, and many people are now leaving Darfur, they're crossing to Chad.
Now, in perhaps somewhat slightly better news, the UN's special representative in Sudan has said that these 2 warring sides in Sudan are more open to negotiations and have actually accepted that this conflict can't continue as it is. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, this call for peace talk has been on for some time. For example, the Intergovernmental Authority on Development, an East African regional grouping, which, by the way, Sudan chairs, has been pursuing this, saying that peace talk is needed. They formed a kind of heads of state and government team headed by President Salva Kiir of South Sudan. Then in the team is the President of Kenya and also President of Djibouti. So this is one aspect. And then we've been hearing also from Saudi Arabia that has been pushing for a peace process. Egypt has also been saying the same. The only problem has been that everybody was speaking individually, but there was no unified voice that was coming that, okay, this is the process and we want to be, for example, behind Saudi Arabia to lead this process, maybe by the support from the US and the other members of the international community to push the process. Now, that's one challenge. Number two, now, we've heard, of course, from the UN saying something which I think will push the fighting parties, because the UN has said if there is any party that thinks that they will win the war and they'll be accepted by the international community, they are deceiving themselves. Nobody should think that will push the other side and will be accepted. So the only way is a negotiated settlement, which is now is going to push the two generals to go for a negotiation table, to the negotiation table. There has been a problem because, for example, the Rapid Support Forces were saying they will not go for peace talk until they ceasefire. On the other side, the Sudan Armed Forces are saying they will not talk with the Rapid Support Forces until they surrender. So these kind of hardlining positions were the ones pushing, actually, the fighting to continue. Okay. And it is true that it is very difficult to really finish this fighting in the battlefield. It will always have to be a negotiated settlement. So that gives the people of Sudan some hope. But the sooner it comes, that is the peace process, the better.
Well, thank you so much for that update. We really appreciate it. That's journalist Patrick Oyet.